sessions. Now what we're going to talk about, how do we actually make money from the pairs? You know, what are pips, how are pips calculated, and how do we go about that? So now change in price of a pair is measured in pips. You know, it's 1 pip. Now when you talk about 1 pip is 10 micropips or points. That's what pips are. It's a very basic concept, but it's very, very important. So now, in the same way, when you talk about 10 pips equals to 100 micropoints, you know, or 100 micropips. So basically, what we're going to see is we're only going to talk about pips in terms of pips. So when you say, oh, my price moved 10 pips, that's going to be like, okay, it's going to be like 100 micropips or 100 points. So for general talking terms, we're only going to focus on like 1 pip, 10 pips, 15 pips, and so on. So when we're talking about, let's say, GBP/JPY, right? And for example, GBP/JPY moves from 131.220 to 131.120. That's a difference of 100 points, which also means it's a difference of 10 pips, right? So if you had a buy order at 131.220 and price moved at if price moved 10 pips below, that's going to be, now you're going to be in negative 10 pips. But if you had a sell order at 131.220 and price moved to 131.120, now you're going to be in positive 10 pips. You know, some people are very, very new, so this is very, very important here. This is how you measure pips, right? You're subtracting the numbers, you're getting the 100 points, and then you're dividing it by 10 to get 10 pips. And when we talk about, let's say, Euro USD, and we're looking at, okay, if price moved from 1.08400 to 1.08150, that's a change of 250 points or 25 pips, right? So this is how you're measuring pips. So let's say if you're saying that, okay, I had a sell order at 0.08400 and price moved down to 0.8150, this means now there was a change of 25 pips. So now I'm positive 25 pips. But if you had a buy order at this point, then you're going to say, okay, now I'm in negative 25 pips. In the same way, when we're talking about USD/JPY and we talk about, okay, let's say that we had price at 106.300 and someone, let's say Hashir, right? Mr. Hashir had a buy order at 106.300 and price moved to 106.568. So when you subtract these two prices, you're going to get 268 points or 268 micropips, which is going to be 26.8 pips. Right? So we're always measuring price in terms of pips, because when we calculate pips in lots, we're going to get our dollar outcome, which we're going to talk about here later on. Right? So first, I want to really focus on how you're calculating pips, but the most important thing is, how do you calculate pips on gold? Calculating pips on gold is completely different because gold is measured in dollars. So let's say you have a gold move, and gold moves from 1715.50 to 1717.50. Right? So when you subtract this, you get the number 2. So this is a $2 move. So you have to understand this, right? When you're looking at gold prices on your charts, you're always looking at the dollar values, right? You're looking at to see that, okay, right now gold is at $1,715.50. So if gold moves to $1,717.50, that's the change of $2. You know, that means gold has moved by 20 pips. If gold moved from 1715 to, let's say, 1720, that's going to be a change of $5, which will also mean now gold has moved by 50 pips, right? So now let me just make sure that, okay, I guess some people are still having issues joining Zoom. Zoom is working perfectly fine. Can everyone see the screen here on Zoom? I just want to make sure. Yes, so screen is working fine. Awesome. I had issues, but now I can see it. Okay, perfect. Perfect, yeah. Let me just tell everyone to maybe update the Zoom. Okay, perfect. So let's move along. Now, what we're going to talk about is lots and leverage. So whenever you start when whenever you start to trade, you're told to like look at you're told to look at the lot sizes, you're told about leverage, and the most important question I get all the time is, hey man, what leverage should I use? So leverage basically gives you the ability to determine how much you can risk at any given time, right? Most brokers offer leverage from 10 to 1 all the way up to 500 to 1. It's a personal preference on what leverage you use as long as you understand risk. What this means is if you have a higher leverage, what this basically means now you can risk a lot at any given time. But when you have a lower leverage, this means you cannot risk your account as much. So let's say, for example, you have 10 to 1 leverage, right? If you have 10 to 1 leverage, at any given time, you can risk up to 10% of your account. Right? So let's say what's going to happen is if you have a lower leverage and if you open a bunch of trades, a point will come where the terminal is going to say, hey, listen, you can't open any more trades because you have low leverage, which means now you have reached the maximum risk you can open on, which may be like 10%. Like and at any time you can lose 10%, 15%. But if you have a higher leverage, let's say you have a 500 to 1 leverage, now at any given time you can risk a lot. So let's say if you have a $1,000 account, at any given time on a 500 to 1 leverage, you can risk up to $600 on one trade. Now that is very, very risky. When you're starting off as a new trader, you're very prone to use that risk. But I would say that always look to see how you can use the least amount of risk. I personally use 200 to 1 leverage or like 400 to 1 leverage because I want to make sure that I don't use a lot of risk. Because once you're trading and once you're once the trade is going against you and you start to look at that, okay, maybe I want to add more risk. If you have higher leverage, you're going to be prone to add more risk. And this has happened to a lot of people. When price moves against you, you're like, oh man, okay, let's say if I'm in a buy and price is moving down, you're going to be prone to add more buys at that point because you're going to justify those actions saying that, okay, now I'm getting a better price. But at the same time, what's happening is you're adding more risk because you have a higher leverage. If you have a lower leverage, you cannot add more buys because system is going to say, hey, listen, you've reached your risk capacity. You can't add more buys at this time. If you add more buys, we're going to stop you out. So it's very important. When we talk about lot sizes determine your actual risk and the amount of dollars you can potentially gain or lose, right? This is very important. So when you're looking at your MetaTrader, let's say you're looking at your MetaTrader on the phone, or you're looking at your MetaTrader on your, let's say your computer, you're looking at the lot sizes, right? If you have, now yesterday someone asked me this important question and they're like, hey man, I opened a 0.5 lot and the price moved by 10 pips and I only made $50. But how come you opened a 5 lot and price moved by 10 pips and you made $500? So that's very important when you're talking about lot sizes. So the lot sizes, they start from the minimum is going to be 0.01 lot and they will go all the way up to 100 lots. So when you're starting from 0.01 lots, and price moves by 15 pips, or let's say for sake of simplicity, we're going to say, let's say price moves by 10 pips, right? If you have a 0.01 lot and price moves by 10 pips, this means you're making $1. Makes sense? Or if price moves by 15 pips, you're making $1.5, right? If you have a 10-cent lot and price moves by 15 pips, you're making $15. Now, if you increase your lot sizes to 1 lot and price moves by 15 pips, now you're making $150. So see how changing the lot sizes, it can drastically increase your gain or your loss. So let's say if you have a $1,000 account, right? You have a $1,000 account and you're using a 1 lot on a $1,000 account. Would it really make sense for you to use a 1 lot? Because if price moves by 10 pips and you lose $100 on a $1,000 account, you've lost 10%. That makes no sense at all. So if you have a $1,000 account, I would recommend using maybe like a 10-cent lot so that even if price moves against you, let's say 15 pips, you're losing $15. That's not going to make a big difference on your $1,000 account. So that's why it's really, really, really important when you're looking at risk, you're also looking at that, okay, what lot sizes am I using? Now, someone can say, okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start using 10-cent lots, but as price starts to move against me, I'm going to keep adding lot sizes. So when you're adding lot sizes, you're realistically adding on more risk. So that's actually very risky. That's something I don't recommend people to do. So one thing, the most important thing to know is leverage, what leverage you're using. Leverage means how much you can risk at any given time. Second thing you're making sure is like what lot sizes you're using. Lot sizes will really determine how much you can make or lose. So like if you're a new trader and if you use a bigger lot size, let's say a 1 lot or a 2 lot on a smaller account, you might make that one win. But at the end of the day, what's going to happen is if you lose, man, you're going to lose big. So it's very important that you understand what lot sizes you're making. Now, sometimes, when you look at social media, what you're going to see is that, okay, people are using like 10 lots and 5 lots and 8 lots on their bigger accounts. And then you look at that and say, man, okay, I want those lots as well. Even though I have a $500 account or a $1,000 account and I want those big lot sizes, can I really do that? No, you can't, because it takes time. When I started back up again after my big downfall last year in February, I started back from like 50-cent lots and 1 lot, and I worked my way up. It took me a whole year to get to where I was before. So it was a gradual process. Just like when you start a new job, you want so like when you start a new job, you want a promotion, but your promotion is going to come after like a year, maybe 2 years, 3 years. Same thing in trading. When you're trading, when you increase your lot sizes, that's your promotion, and that promotion is going to take time. So you really need to know that, okay, this is a race, not with people, but this is a race with yourself, that, okay, how much can you grind with 10-cent lots, or how much can you grind with $1 lots? So this is really important. So when you talk about margins or percentage margins, me personally, I've never looked at margins. I've never focused on margins because margins was a very advanced concept for me. And at that time, I didn't really understand what margins were. Now I really understand them after I've been trading, and now I know leverages and lot sizes. So margin requirements, they come at the very, very end. So we're going to wait for that later on. Okay, so I want to do a mic check here again. If mic check okay, everyone can see the screen, things are working good. Okay, perfect. All right.